Hello! Welcome into the Baseball Insiders. I'm Adam Weinrib, joined as always by FanSided's MLB insider Robert Murray, back from a break. And thank goodness nothing happened. The baseball world was totally silent week one of the regular season. Nobody signed. Nobody started 0-7. Nobody started 8-0. None of these things occurred, which is the best part about baseball. No, actually, we have to talk about everything. Extension madness. So many names locked down long-term for people who just began their careers to more experienced players, to people that some folks in the comments have been asking about for months at a time. And now we have some finality, plus a number of early regular season surprises. Robert is going to help me determine whether we should believe in them, be skeptical of them, or somewhere in between. And mentioning the aforementioned Robert Murray, we cannot do this podcast without him, and we are glad he is here. Robert, how are you doing, dude?
I'm great. I was on vacation, and somehow I left vacation more tired than I was before I went on vacation. But that is the price to pay for breaking some cool news in the Jackson Merrill deal and all the other stuff that was going on. I am very excited to break it all down because I have a lot of different details on some of this stuff that has not been reported yet. So I'm anxious to dive into it because I've been chomping at the bit here for quite some time. Adam Weinrib, how are you? How was your time? Well, you were in Arizona.
I was at the home of Robert Murray, but doing something else while Robert was breaking scoops. Love my time in Phoenix. Refreshed, happy to be back. Voice is slowly returning. Doing podcasts after a week of not doing podcasts. Got to warm up the old vocal cords to talk about all the extension madness. But thank you for joining us, everybody. 3:30 Eastern every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We do this podcast 1 o'clock Eastern on Wednesdays, though. But that's when you can catch Robert and I. Eric Cole and I will be here on Tuesday for the Prospect Show at noon. It's a packed week on the Baseball Insiders, and it was a packed week in the news cycle without the Baseball Insiders. So we appreciate you coming back and joining us either on YouTube or on your favorite podcast platforms. If you can't get enough, that's not enough for you. Join us in the Discord between shows. You can join at either the Rumor Mill tier or the All-Star tier to get your fill and ask Robert and I questions between the streams. Also, subscribe to the Moonshot. That's our weekly baseball email newsletter where the FanSided MLB team, including Robert Murray, break down the biggest stories in the big leagues with humor, insight, and behind-the-scenes info. You can also get that content and more on the Baseball Insiders feed on fansided.com/baseball-insiders. That's where you get Robert's latest rumors and notes, humor and insight from yours truly, and the best of baseball and pop culture from the FanSided MLB staff writers. So check that out. Okay, Robert, let's get going. Let's see. Okay. Garrett Crochet first. Again, I was in Phoenix. I was losing the thread a little bit. Garrett Crochet gets done after you and I talked about whether it was posturing or real that they were far apart. And it turns out however far apart they were, they hammered it out and they got it done. Red Sox also finished Christian Campbell after just a couple of games at the big league level. Ketel Marte and the Diamondbacks, which you were all over. Jackson Merrill and the Padres, which you were also all over. Which one were you most surprised by, and which one felt most like an inevitability to you and something that was going to get done sooner rather than later and just happened to be sooner?
The one that caught me off guard was Garrett Crochet in the Red Sox. And I know that had been really heavily talked about in the rumor mill, but those talks were dead. Like they were not talking. And I did not expect an extension to get done during the season here, but the Red Sox made a late push and they got Crochet signed. So this is exactly how this all played out. Is I did not have that anywhere on my radar, none. And I was grilling because I was on PTO and I had my phone in my pocket. I was chilling. And then I open up my phone or I grab my phone out of my pocket and I have 5 missed calls. And like each person is saying, call me ASAP. I genuinely just had no clue that Crochet was coming in that moment because I was under the impression that it was dead. But it was a really smart move here from Boston, giving him the 6-year contract, worth $170 million, can max out at $180 million, was a strong move for them. It was a huge value there for Crochet as well. Obviously last year he was a surprise opening day starter for the Chicago White Sox. Now he's the front-facing member of that rotation for Boston. So that was a priority for them. I think that was very smart overall of Craig Breslow there in that front office to get that done, because if they ended up waiting and they had the kind of year that, or if he had the kind of year that they all thought he would have, that price tag would have been well over $200 million. So they ended up doing a really good thing there. I want to dive into that Jackson Merrill stuff because that one's the one I got the most insight on. I don't know when you were ready to do that, Adam, but I am very ready to do that.
Yeah, I think now is the time. Let's roll into it because obviously you had Merrill and Marte pretty early, but Merrill is definitely the one that probably raised the most eyebrows just in terms of every Padres fan on earth wanted that finished. Kind of a surprising time to see it get done.
Yeah, they've had previous talks even before Merrill ended up debuting with the Padres. But last year, like he made it clear he wanted to play. He didn't want to do he wanted to play before doing an extension. He didn't want to do one of those where he signs an extension before he ends up debuting, because if everything played out the way both sides expected, that could have been a generational steal. Like we're talking probably below what Jackson Julio ended up getting in Milwaukee. And for a player of Jackson Merrill's caliber, that would have been a steal. But talks ended up picking up later on in spring training. The two sides have been talking this time around for at least a few weeks. And they were at one point, I would say like a week before a deal ended up getting reached, my optimism was pretty low that something was going to get done. I heard there was a big gap in negotiations. Padres just didn't seem to have enough money in order to get a deal done. But the two sides continued to talk, and there was the Padres, continued to chip away the gap of what was remaining in talks. And Merrill had a set number in mind, and ultimately he ended up getting that contract done with San Diego. But it took a very strong effort overall to get that deal done. From the Padres perspective, that is something that AJ Preller and some other members in their front office really prioritized. And it was a very small group of people on that side who were working with Merrill's camp in order to get this thing done. And it's a pretty unique deal overall. Like he's got 9 years, $135 million guaranteed, but this deal can very easily get to $165 million. And something that I was reminded of before this podcast, like right before it, is that if Merrill ends up reaching all of his plate appearance bonuses, which is very possible because all it would be for him is getting 500 plate appearances per season, which is very doable. His AAV would actually be a little under $1 million more than what Julio Rodriguez's is. And that's something that I have not seen talked about at all. Obviously there's been some criticisms of this deal, and like I get that, because if Merrill waited for free agency, we're talking very likely him getting a $300 or $400 million contract. But Merrill wants to win. He prioritizes wanted to have the best roster around him in order to compete. Obviously, the Padres have a tremendously talented roster overall, but he wants that to be just a long-term run of sustained winning. And that was a big part of it. He was comfortable in San Diego. He's got a relationship with AJ Preller. He's got a relationship with all sorts of different people in that organization. And it just feels like home for him. And he wanted to stay in San Diego. And yeah, like some people think this deal is light, but in all reality, this deal is closer to $165 million than it is to $135 million. I know it's not necessarily the guaranteed number, but it's pretty darn close. So I think it was you can never fault a guy for wanting to get over $100 million. It changes his life and future generations of Merrills as well. So no faults at that, but this, make no mistake about it, this could end up being one of the biggest steals in baseball history if everything goes right for the Padres. And I firmly expect it to go right.
I do as well. Is this the deal that you like the most for both sides, or at least for team, from a team's perspective, or is there another one that stands out as, a better, finishing move? The Christian Campbell one could be, in my opinion, an all-time bargain and leads to the Red Sox. Again, the Red Sox with this, this Braves-esque foresight, and also, like you hinted at with the Crochet thing, intense closing speed. Like, same with Bregman. Didn't see it coming. Bregman thought he was going to Detroit. Crochet thought he was waiting to the offseason or midseason for an extension. And then all of a sudden, the Red Sox just intense closing velocity. And there it goes. So yeah, that one, I think, I think the Campbell is my favorite of these extensions, but I'm curious if you have one that stands out in that department.
Yeah, I'll say Merrill is my favorite for both the team and the player, but especially the team in this case. The Campbell one, that one really caught me off guard because I had heard right around the time that I was about to break the Jackson Merrill thing that Campbell was done. and I wasn't able to figure out the terms. But 8 for 60 is incredibly light, and that to me feels like it could end up being like just a huge bargain for the Boston Red Sox. So the fact that they've gotten Crochet extended and then they end up getting Campbell extended as well, that's really smart GMing there by Craig Breslow. And I've given the Red Sox a lot of flack overall for not spending. I think I'm one of many people who have done that. Actually, I don't think that. I know that. So I want to give them their flowers. That's a job well done overall by that front office in order to get this team heading in the right track. And I also want to give another insight into the Merrill thing, because this was one of the most challenging scoops of my entire career. And I want to give you guys a window into this, because this is the stuff that you don't see behind the scenes. But
this is what this podcast is. This is what we do here.
I was very clued into the Jackson Merrill negotiations, and I believe I broke it. What was it, on Wednesday morning? Is that right?
Wednesday or Tuesday?
I woke up to it.
Yeah, I woke up to in Phoenix like a bomb, and someone asked me if I'd seen it. I was like, yeah, I saw it, and I know who announced it.
Yeah, it was freaking crazy. Yeah, and like it was Wednesday when I ended up tweeting it. But that deal was done actually on Tuesday afternoon, and I was not allowed to report it for over 16 hours. I was told to keep it quiet because they just didn't want it out at that point. But waiting for that and like the fear of getting scooped, I slept exactly 1 hour that night. I genuinely was petrified I was going to get scooped. And that was one that would have been easily the hardest thing to ever miss in my life, because I put years and years and years into that entire story. But all of a sudden I woke up, got the go ahead, and boom. And I ended up tweeting it, and that was pretty sweet, but that was really challenging. But that being said, that's the business here. Is like, obviously scoops are great, but relationships and following people's lead and not burning bridges is the way to go. Cause I'm going to be in this for a very long time, but let me tell you, that was challenging. My buddy Max, who I've been with, can verify it. That was about as brutal as it gets for a reporter in that case. And I was talking to Jeff Passett about it afterwards, and he agreed. That's about as brutal as it gets, for sure.
Perilous. I mean, in that case, it's like me trying to wake up to get to the airport early. You set an alarm every 12 minutes. Like, you can't sleep anyway, but you're just like, put this alarm for 3:30. Let me throw a 3:48 in there, and then maybe a 3:54.
It's funny you say that, because I was told before I went to bed that I could tweet it at 3:45 a.m. That was the time I was supposed to break it. And then all of a sudden I'm sleeping or trying to sleep, and I get a call from my guy and said, no, you got to hold it till this time. And I'm just like, my night of sleep at that point was shot. But that is about as deep into the window of breaking news as I could possibly give you. Not every scoop is quite like that, but that was was a pain in the ass. But the people who gave it to me and how we worked through it on that process, I appreciate you guys, because that was one of the most rewarding stories in my entire career. Just getting to that point was a little challenging, to say the least.
That is so wild. And thank goodness, by the way, that not every scoop is built like that, because I would not want to see you hustling in that manner for other less significant scoops in your verbiage.
No. Yeah, at least the Drew Pomeranz one wasn't like that. I was in a hotel room in Oakland when I broke that trade, the significant one. Oh, boy, that was no fun. But anyways, welcome to my life, the scoops life.
There you go. I mean, yeah, everybody, this is what you get on this show, and you get more of it in the Discord if you want it. We'd love to see you in the Baseball Insiders Discord. I would be remiss if I didn't ask before we moved on to a couple early season surprising starts. Is this it? Any more extensions we should be expecting? The first week of the regular season, a weird time to be packed full of news, and yet it was. So, anything else that you're monitoring on the horizon? Don't even need to give specifics. Just, hey, keep your eyes open if you're closing them.
Yeah, I think the Phillies really should prioritize the Kyle Schwarber extension. That, to me, seems like something that team is open to. Schwarber is obviously open to an extension in Philadelphia. Like, there's mutual interest there. I don't think that's any secret based on the comments that both sides have made, especially with the reporting, I believe, that Matt Gelb has done, that there was some negotiation during spring training. So, that's not breaking news by any means, but that, to me, feels like a deal that should be the number one priority in Philadelphia. But yeah, I don't know of anything imminent there. I'm just stating what I think the Phillies should do. But that to me seems like something that should have been done before the regular season started, because if he leaves in free agency, that would be a ginormous void in that lineup overall. Because against right-handers, like he's the leadoff guy. Against left-handers, I think the other day he was batting cleanup. But as a leadoff guy, he's just tremendous. And I mean, if you can end up going up 1-0, one pitch into the game, I mean, that's pretty darn good. And he also can walk with the best of them too. So there's a lot of value overall there for Schwarber in Philadelphia.
Yeah, nobody walked like that guy. And hopefully he will be walking straight to the bank, the greater bank of Philadelphia, with a whole big pile of money. So keep your eyes out for that, everybody, Philly fans and MLB fans alike. All right. Quick recap of the first week, and then we will see you all next week again with so much more. Again, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the Baseball Insiders coming at you right back to normal. So far, the small sample sizes have been very kind to some and not quite so kind to others. Going to talk surprising starts, hot and cold, and determine which ones we believe in the most. Before we even get going, I'm going to give the Dodgers the old-fashioned duh stamp. Stamp it with a big duh. Like, yeah. Did I expect them to be 8-0? Not necessarily. I didn't expect that of any team. But if you told me one team's going to be 8-0, I would go the Dodgers, and then you would go, yeah, and I'll go, okay, great. So, yeah, I believe in the Los Angeles Dodgers. Spoiler alert. But what about the Padres, who I was not bullish on to begin the year? I predicted them out of the playoffs behind the Diamondbacks, and I still stand by being bullish on the Diamondbacks. Yeah. But there's another undefeated team in the NL West right now, and we can honestly throw the Giants in there for good measure as well, who are 5-1 entering play on Friday. So Padres and Giants. I know one of those teams you believed in a little more to start the season, but maybe not to this extent. Or am I wrong? What should I read into the early state of the NL West?
That is really freaking good. The Dodgers, like, we don't need to talk about the Dodgers because we all know just how great they are. But the Padres, I did not have them starting 7-0. I know they're down 3-1 to the Cubs right now. Maldonado hitting a home run against Imanaga was not necessarily something on my bingo card. But that team overall is it's built in a really fun and cool way. And obviously, they got the foundation on offense, and you can now put Jackson Merrill in there. I do think it's cool that Merrill ended up hitting a home run on the day that the extension was actually agreed to, and then the day that the extension was actually announced. So if you have any worries about this extension possibly getting to Merrill's head or being like putting pressure on him, that you don't have to worry about that, because he is about as determined and motivated and just keyed in as a player as there is, especially for a young guy like that. But I'm a huge believer in the Padres. They got a really good thing going on there. They have a tremendously talented roster overall. And honestly, if they ended up beating the Dodgers last year in the postseason, that to me felt like the team that was going to win the World Series. So I think the Padres are absolutely here to stay. The Giants, too, they are absolutely should not be slept on. And their young pitching staff overall is it's a nice looking unit there for sure. And Birdsong is someone that they're very high on overall. I know they ended up optioning Kyle Harrison to the minors there, but they still very much believe in him. He actually just changed agencies overall. So that's some news there. He went to CAA baseball. I'm a believer in both of those teams. I will say the team that I'm kind of stunned overall by, and I think everyone in their right mind would agree with this, it's the Atlanta Braves. Like, what Adam the heck is going on in Atlanta? Are you okay over there? Give me a thumbs up. I just want to make sure you're okay.
I'm doing extremely poorly. I'm not okay because I'm thinking about the Atlanta Braves, bottom of the barrel in the NL East. I'm doing fine. I'm battling it out. Scream sung some karaoke on Tuesday, and still thinking about it, still reverberating around my vocal cords. But
wait, I got a question for you, Adam,
yeah.
Before you dive into that.
Yeah.
Did anyone do what I did in Orlando, where during karaoke I ripped my shirt off?
No. But was it mentioned as like a thing that we should maybe do in tribute to you? Yeah, it got bandied about a couple of times, but nobody took the risk and actually made the leap, I will say.
No, that's probably smart, because I mean, we were there for we were just starting our first drink, and I almost got us kicked out. So that was that was maybe not my best move, especially since I was meeting everybody for the first time. What a first impression that was! Oh, boy,
there were some strong first impressions made this time though as well. I will say. Good singers.
That's yeah. Well, I don't know what to interpret that as.
No, good, just really ridiculously good singers in the group where you're like, all right, okay. Like I don't know why you didn't brag about this. But I would say much better first impressions in the fans had a karaoke outing than there were from the Atlanta Braves, who again we kept checking. You're checking in on scores while you're at these events, and you're like, oh, I think they're finally gonna get one tonight. At Dodger Stadium. No, sorry, it's Shohei Ohtani bobblehead day. No, they're not. There was a big lead early for the Braves that dissipated, and 0-7 heading into a weekend series with the Fish could right the ship, but not that much. You're not going to right the ship as much as you want to. You forecasted that you're shocked by the Braves. I am shocked by the Braves. Although, again, the Braves and the Tigers get the Dodgers on your schedule. It's basically like a big middle finger in April. Like, they're deeper than you. They're more ready than you. They got ready to go overseas 2 weeks ago. You are not on their level. You may be someday, but you're not right now. So some of that is, part of the reason why the Braves are where they are. But at the same time, this start is insane.
Oh, it's absolutely insane. And like they've had so much go wrong already, and like the injury bug is just crushing them. And I mean, now they're without Ronaldo Lopez for possibly the entire first half of the season, if not more than that. And it's just everything that could have possibly gone wrong for the Atlanta Braves has gone wrong. And I believe in that leadership group overall, in Anthopoulos and Brian Snicker and everyone else in that organization. So if there's ever a team that can come back and bounce back from this, it's them. And I also should caution that we're like 6 or 7 games into the season, and they are 5.5 games back. That can very easily be made up with a hot week or two. Like the sky is not falling in Atlanta. But if it continues to the point where they're, let's say, like 2-13 or 2-15 or somewhere around that ballpark, that is when things would get really just like it would. I don't necessarily know the phrase I want to say, but it would be really tough there in Atlanta. Again, I don't expect it to get to that point. There's a lot of season left, but between them and then the other part that I'll throw into this, and it's the entire AL Central. Like they're either 2-4 or 2-5 at this point. And like, if you look at it, like the Twins, I thought they were going to end up being a real force in that division. The Royals too, Guardians, did not have the White Sox being tied for first place after 6 games, which kind of crazy overall. But that division will be better. But as far as an overall start, that division looks pretty piss poor at this point.
Yeah, I mean, again, somebody's got to win it. So, in terms of the AL Central standings, it's decidedly mediocre top to bottom at this point. And I was already regretting a Twins pick as it was coming out of my mouth. Like, when you're saying something, you can't stop yourself. You just got to stand by your words. But you're like, my words suck. That's how I felt predicting the Twins to win the Central on our preview podcast. Because I was like, if you just erase the last month and a half of last season where they were among the worst teams in Major League Baseball, then there's something there. And maybe this is the year that Royce Lewis, meanwhile, as I say his name, his leg falls off. So I'm not overly impressed with anybody, but I like the White Sox grit. I like Sean Burke, like the comments are saying. Yeah. I'm not picking the White Sox at this point. If everything is equal and Gleyber Torres is gone for an extended period of time because the obliques, they just linger, and we know that. If all things are equal, I'll take the team with the deepest pitching and the best player, and that's the Kansas City Royals. But right now, it's mediocre fart noises across the board. I don't know how you feel. I mean, again, we're talking about a division full of mid, but and this is not the way it was last year, when there was a fleet of playoff teams, and we all thought Minnesota was going to make it too. So I don't know how you feel early. Is there any team that stands out above the rest, or are you still waiting for more information? Because I need more data, but if this is what we're stuck with, I'll go with the baseline that the Royals have established.
Yeah, that's exactly where my head's at too. Like in the end, they have Bobby Witt Jr. They're the best player in that division, and they have they've invested a good amount of resources into that roster as well. And I'll believe into that more than I will, obviously, the White Sox. The Tigers, to me, I could see them still kind of lingering around. So my guess is to how far this division ends up panning out: Royals, Tigers, Guardians, and then we'll see exactly how it ends up from there. Well, I think I got the White Sox in the last, so
Yeah.
I mean that feels pretty safe there, but it'll be okay. We're a week into the season, can't overreact to too much. Drew, I'm kind of curious what story you're referring to. Are you talking about the karaoke story? Because I will tell that story if that is indeed what you're looking for, because that
I
could be a podcast exclusive.
Yeah, I suspect that's what we're looking at there. That was my guess.
Yeah, that's my guess too, but I want to make sure, because assuming makes an ass out of you and me, and that
Of course.
that is I want to avoid doing that.
Yeah, this is a fact-based podcast. Drew, let us know. We will absolutely help you out if that's what you're looking for. I think we're aligned on these. I am surprised by the Giants. I'm not giving them my full attention yet. I'll give them partial, and then we'll check in another couple weeks. But yeah, I hand up underestimated the Padres after the offseason turmoil, the financial issues, the drama therein. And some teams would lose a series like that to the Dodgers and be downtrodden the next year. We don't know what cosmic weirdness happened to the 2023 Padres, but they lost every one-run game. Like, they could not close out a one-run game. They lost 38 coin flips or whatever. And you just have to look at the universe and go, something's wrong with us this year. And last year, they lose that playoff series to the Dodgers, and they could come back this year after all that drama diminished and moping, or they could come back with a monstrous chip on their shoulder, and they appear to have come back in the second manner. And I do think Jackson Merrill is partially responsible for that kind of thing.
Yeah, Jackson Merrill is the piece that I think can get the Padres over the top. They obviously have plenty of, like, they have Machado, they have Tatis, they have Bogarts, they have Cronenworth, they got pitching. I mean, they got a lot of good stuff going on there. But Merrill is the piece that, to me, if you get them in a 7-game series against the Dodgers, I think it is possible for the Padres to beat them. I think, to me, they are one of maybe a couple of teams in the National League who are capable of taking down the Dodgers in a full series in the postseason. Like, they're very talented overall. This is a Padres fan podcast, or a Padres hype up podcast, I should say. So, Drew, if you ever talk about us hyping up the Dodgers a lot and being Dodgers fans, go back to this podcast so you can watch it, because I really love what that team's building. Because I also got to give AJ Preller a ton of credit, because he has had so little to work with this offseason, and yet he was able to find the finances enough to go extend Jackson Merrill. And that, I did not think that was personally possible. Like, they're not a perfect team by any means, but Preller did a tremendous job there, and he deserves his cap, or he deserves his flowers, because I genuinely did not think it was possible for this to get done.
Yeah, mercy, good stuff, and a momentum-filled start for the Pods. Anything else in the notebook that you want to bring up before we sign off? And also, the karaoke story apparently is what has been requested.
Yeah, I don't have anything else in the notebook as of this point. So, Drew, this is the story of the karaoke night. So it was the first ever fan-sided company meetup. It was in Orlando, Florida. And we went to this karaoke bar, and a bunch of people started singing. And then Zach Best, who is the founder of Fansided, who is just a tremendous person overall, came up to me and said, "You and Carm," which that's Mark Carman, who was previously here with myself before Adam came along over here, and said we were up next. And I had no idea what we were singing, like, genuinely no clue. And it was our turn to go up there. I mean, I'm fine talking in front of people. Like, that's what I do. But all of a sudden, Barbie Girl started being, like, played, and I do not know a single word of that song. And Carm did it. He was dancing up there, and I just stood up there. I froze, and I'm just like, son of a, like, I looked at Zach, and he was just dying laughing. And I mean, it was so awkward that I just ripped my shirt off, and I just tried to get the crowd going. And we got some hoots and hollers, but all of a sudden I had security come up to me and said, "If you got to put your shirt back on, if not, then everybody would have gotten kicked out," which that would have not been good. I may have been out of a job after that in case that actually did happen, but thankfully I'm still employed. And I put my shirt back on. So that's good. But that is indeed the story. And Mark Carman is an absolute G. And yeah, that the fact I got to experience that with him is 1 in a million. And shout out to Carm, because we love Carm on this podcast.
Yeah, shout out to Carm. His energy was absolutely missed at this meetup, as was yours, but not quite the shirtless part of that energy. We wanted to stay at the bar for the full 2 hours this time.
No, that's a very, very good move by you. Yeah, but hey, even though we were on PTO, we were still getting stuff done. And there was one world where I'm not kidding. I thought I was gonna be breaking all 3 extensions that day. I thought I had. I mean, you knew I had the entire Marte deal.
Yeah.
I told you about it. And I had Campbell, but oh well. I mean, it happens. At least as long as we got Jackson Merrill, it was a win in my book.
I would agree. And I would say job well done regardless. Not a bad list of extensions to have on your docket while on PTO, while in scramble mode, like a particularly tense tribal council at a Survivor finale. Job really well done by you. Job well done by us getting the podcast back on track. And we will be here next week. I will be able to talk and scream and yell at full volume. I think, maybe. If not, that'll be crazy. I really hope so. Until then, I'm Adam Weinrib. Thank you for joining us. That's Robert Murray of Fansided's MLB Insider Robert Murray. You can find more from him on fansided.com/baseball-insiders, as well as in the Moonshot newsletter, as well as in the Discord, as well as on your favorite podcast platforms, and on this channel. Plenty of additional content, plenty of shorts, plenty of good stuff. Robert, thank you for hanging with us. One final good question here as we sign off too. When's the last day for the rookie call-up to be eligible to win the extra pick? It's like April 20th, right?
Or somewhere around there. Yeah. Give or take.
Not quite yet. Not quite yet, though.
What's that?
Not quite yet. Like, we're not there, but we're getting
No, we're not there quite yet. We still got a little bit of time, but let me look, and we'll give you that answer on the next podcast. How's that sound?
Sounds good to me. Yeah, show up. If that wasn't enough of a reason to show up Monday, there's a tease for you. Come join us on our next podcast here on the Baseball Insiders on Monday afternoon, 3:30 Eastern, and join us in the Discord. Before then, for Robert Murray, I'm Adam Weinrib. Take good care, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.